What up, folks? This is your boy Dino, aka your Solid Five,
And Nick T Bay Area Creep, keeping it real.
and
And
we
we
are the
are
Boo
the Boo
Crew.
Crew.
So scared.
Boo.
We got an awesome guest today. We got Jake C. Young, or you go by sometimes by Jake Eastwood.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you guys so much for having me.
I
Welcome.
was
Glad to have
excited
you
for
here.
this, yeah. So Nick, we're gonna start off with.
Let's start off. So what brought you into this acting career? Because I see I was going through IDMB, of course, and it says that you came up from humble beginnings, co-starring until eventually you led into production and then making your own production company called MTMS. So you want to give us a little bit of history about where you started, how'd you get into acting, what brought you into acting, especially in the horror films?
Yeah.
Did you start horror films?
No, so actually, I kind of started out doing I started doing a bunch of almost like I done more action, more drama oriented films,
Yeah.
uh, and I when I first started, it's just sort of something you always kind of know you want to do. I mean, when you start doing acting or start making a film production, there's always something there that inside you want to do. So I always had a big imagination as a kid. I mean, I was always just coming up with these crazy things, and of course, most commonly I get the Eastwood side. Did that help you? And like not really, because I'm
Mhm.
down here. I live in Kentucky, and so I just had a big imagination as a kid. As I got older, it sort of progressed, and I started making more drama films. And as I began to make more drama films, I used to actually really not like horror movies. I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, they'd freak me out and stuff. But as I got to do it more, and I got to actually see how they were made, I found a real thrill. Excuse me, with my audience, because I decided one day, I had worked in enough film production, out in LA and a few other places, and it was like, okay, I'm going to go back to my hometown and I'm going to start something up there. And streaming changed the game for all of that. Streaming kind of put it to where it was available. For young filmmakers like myself at the time, not so much anymore, but whenever you're young like that, you have a lot of learning to do, and I had a lot of learning curves. So I started making films, and as I began to progress, doing my own thing, and I founded MTS Pictures. I really began to resonate with my audience, and I loved the fact to be able to create stories and create different types of genres that would really make people feel something inside, such as like horror movies, because I always get a real thrill out of crafting my suspense. And
Yeah.
I think that's really good in a horror movie because anyone can have blood and guts in a movie,
Right.
but when
Yeah.
you can craft that suspense and you can make your audience actually, when you're sitting there and you're biting your nails or you're gripping the edge of your seat, that's how you know you got a good horror film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old were you when you first started getting into film, by the way? You said you were young.
Yeah, so I was probably, oh man, this was like I probably started, I knew I wanted to do it when I was like a little kid, just to pretend and stuff. And then about the time I was 13 is when I started really developing my skills, like putting on the backyard movies, having my friends come over like, "Listen, man, I'll pay you in pizza if you'll do this thing." And
Yeah.
I was putting on little productions, and then about the time that I graduated high school, and then I, went to college and stuff. That's when I really got delved into film, and it just became more because I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to tell stories, and I wanted to make people feel a certain way on the camera. Um, and I've been privileged enough to not only direct films and write them, but also to star in them too. So I've been very privileged in that area, and I'm super thankful for every chance I get to tell a new story.
Did you start
So,
off using one of those like old video cameras that had like the VHS tapes in them?
Oh, dude, listen. Yeah. So that was like the first ever ones. Then I kind of I upgraded. Okay. So I thought, oh man, I'm gonna get this digital camera. Life is gonna be so cool. I'm gonna be able to do this. And it was trash. I mean, it ran on AAA batteries, so I was always
Yeah.
having to change the batteries out and
yeah.
but it was the first time you could record to an SD card, and I think it had to be like um 8 gig was a lot back then. I mean,
So yeah,
it
for
saved
sure.
you from having to, cut the
Definitely.
film and splice it, and it's like Windows 7 Movie Maker and a SD card. Man, you were set. You were good
You're,
to go.
you're working with what you got. So real quick before you graduated high school, did you do any kind of like theater while you were there?
No, no,
Okay.
I actually did not. So when I was in high school, I was actually, excuse me, guys. I was actually really shy. I was actually really backward because I've actually I recently done a little Hallmark film, and I had someone on the set there ask me. They were like, did you ever do any theater or stuff like that? And I was like, no, because I was terrified to, let that side of me kind of be seen, and I had like
Yeah.
huge stage fright. But about the time that I began to graduate, I sort of let a lot of that go, and I sort of decided if you want to do this, you're going to have to accept a little humility, but I never did do theater. I never was big into that. And growing up, all my stories I like to tell, they were very action oriented, which I ultimately led into the horror stuff because I really like the suspense, the thriller, that keep people on their seat. Because I mean, you don't want to just go sit in a movie theater and just watch somebody's life story if there's no real grasping. I mean, for me, anyways, and I
Yeah.
like to think that that the stories that I've written so far and that I've been able to tell, I like to think they're full of suspense, So
Yeah.
getting that masterful suspense is your greatest element in all of horror.
Yeah, for me, like I love when I watch horror films, I especially love characters. So if it's a little character driven, I get attached to it a lot too. I mean, it doesn't always have to be that case, but a good slasher is good every now and then too, and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Do you miss doing drama and action films?
Some, but I actually recently I posted something, and I think they posted it on our website to mtspicturesnews.com. So if you guys ever want to check out any of the stuff I'm doing or anything new that's
Oh
coming
yeah,
up I've
definitely.
got going on, you can check out. It's called MTS Pictures News. That's the name of my production company. But
Okay.
I recently set up something that I'm going to try to delve into a little bit. As much as I miss doing, the drama and the action films, I've kind of incorporated a new genre of film, and which I have talked with a few people, and we're calling it Southern horror because we're
Right.
kind of going with more of that action, which of course, with my family heritage, the Western theme is very strong, and
Yeah.
I'm most commonly known for doing a lot of Western style films, especially where I live at and things like that. But morphing those elements that people really like those things like Yellowstone and Landman and those types of television shows, but morphing those with something as cool as like Nightmare on Elm Street or some kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I mean that's those are two genres that could really form together to make a good
Yeah.
subgenre.
Yeah.
So I've developed something what I'm going to start releasing with my next couple of films as what I like to call it's called Southern horror. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be something that will incorporate a lot of those elements from the from drama, action, and bring into that suspense and horror realm, which I think those are just two of my favorite genres. And when you bring them together, I mean, man, I mean that's just one of those really really cool things that I think it'll be good.
I'm
Yeah, I
thinking
saw that
Western
you I
horror.
saw that you posted that, and I was looking at that because I saw the article, and I was like, well, that's interesting and cool, a nice little change in the way that films could be made. So I
I
thought that
think
was
Western
cool.
horror movies would be sick because then you had From Dusk Till Dawn, you had Demon Knight, and it had that Western horror feel to it, and it was really original and it was unique, and you don't see too many of those. So I think that's
Right.
actually a great move.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they mix, and you don't have to just do period westerns. I mean, you can do like neo western, sort of that southern vibe. But the last couple of films I've done, I'm going to be grafting those in there too. I done one called The Dark Room, which I had Diane Franklin from Amityville in there with us.
Yeah.
Then I had the most recent one called Daylight to Dark, and it's a very western esque vibe. It's a vampire comedy story, but it's got a lot of horror elements in there, and of course it's got Tuesday Night from Nightmare on Elm Street, which she was great to work with. Um,
Hmm.
and I mean, just grafting those in, and then of course I've got the most recent one that I've got coming out. It's uh, it's what I would call definitely a southern horror type of feel. It's called Soul's Chapel. It's based on a real life place here where I live at. It's sort of a haunting of an old church type of story. But I think it's kind of something that is an age for a new audience, as I think that as I see more and more in the horror industry, especially in movies like that, I think indie films are really starting to take over more because
Yeah.
there's so much more originality to the stories, opposed to what these big box offices are putting out. And the fans, people who like films like that, they're people like you and me. And so when you get people like you and me behind the camera that are making stuff that we want to see, I think it resonates a lot more with an audience, and I think it makes them feel a lot more like we're telling a story not to make money, but a story that it's made by fans for fans because it's something people want to see.
Yeah, because everything right now is getting remade.
Oh,
That's all.
absolutely.
That's all that's happening is remake after remake after remake, and it's
Or
like,
yeah, or they base a movie off of oh yeah, this was a true story, and it's like, man, are you guys just grasping at straws to come up with stuff or what?
yeah.
So it's like,
I believe, David, you just watched Daylight to Dark, didn't you?
I started it. I think I was like maybe halfway, but then I ran out. Work got in the way and stuff like that, so I didn't get to finish it.
Yeah, I
Um,
started to. It was pretty hilarious right off the bat. I was
yeah,
like, oh, well, this is gonna be good. What I did watch was Free to a Bad Home.
oh yeah, yeah,
I thought that was interesting as hell. I really enjoyed watching that, especially because when I turned it on, it reminded me of Weapons because like it went Amy, and then it went Ryan, and then it went Julia, and
yeah.
it played each character in depth. But how was your time filming that? Because you played a thief breaking into a house, and then you freed. I'm gonna call her a witch. To me, she was a witch, and you freed a witch, and then she ran off. But how was the production and filming of that movie?
Oh wow! So I done that one with the Hale brothers. Cameron and Scott Hale. They've made a
Mhm.
couple of films. If you actually, I kind of learned a lot from them when it first came to doing a little bit of horror genre filming. There's actually a precursor to that movie called Entropy. So if you actually watch that, it's got a little bit of precursor to the lady that I freed in that. But I've been working in the industry for a little bit, and one day, Cameron reached out to me, and him and Scott, the Hale brothers, they were very, very nice, and they're like, "Hey, man, we'd love to work with you and get you in on something." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, and at the time I was young, if you can't tell, from how much I've changed a
Yeah, oh,
little
yeah,
bit,
yeah. You're
my
still
hair was
young.
long,
You're
and
still young, right?
yeah,
yeah. Well, I mean, I was pretty young, still in the in the film career, and I was like, absolutely, guys, I'd love to do it. So I get there, and I was filming that, and it was different because there's almost no dialogue in my part.
Mhm.
It's very quiet, but there's so much story that happens within that few
Yeah,
minutes of the segment that I'm in. It really tells a story. But I got there and we began shooting, and it rolled into early morning hours. And we got about halfway through, and the DP, he's like, "All right, guys, that was a good rehearsal, but the card just got wiped." I was like, "Oh no." No, so what you're seeing is actually that's like the third time that that whole thing was redone. I mean, so
right.
at that point and at that time, um, I think we had shot we shot the scenes where I first seen her. Those were what we had to reshoot. Now,
Yeah,
of course, some of it was actually it was legitimate. Like me going in and looking through the house with the flashlight and stuff.
yeah,
A lot of that. I thought that was a very interesting take on behalf of the directors, the Hale brothers, because almost all of that's done in one take. I mean, I don't know
yeah,
if you've noticed, but it's a very subtle movement, but the whole thing is almost done in one take. So I thought that was a very interesting concept that they came up with there. So the filming of that was actually it was a lot of fun, especially when I got to work with Miranda Neiman. That scene where she's in the bathtub there. She was like still covered in all that
yeah.
shit. And she'd been laying on a tarp for hours, and she was like, Man, I am just gross." So it was so fun, because as we went into those wee morning hours, We shot what you see. That was actually shot chronologically there towards the end. So whenever that happened, and I free the witch, there towards the end, that actually happened. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. So
Ooh,
people, there were a few people like going out of that subdivision, getting ready to go to work and stuff, and they're
yeah.
like, "What the hell is going on?" And, I'm wearing the hood and the backpack, and this chick's all tore up, and but it was a lot of fun. I really really enjoyed doing that production, and I hope I get the chance to work with those two guys again because man, they were great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a pretty cool scene. I noticed how you said some shots were done in one hit
Yeah.
because I saw the backpack, and I saw one scene the backpack had blue tape on it, and I assumed that was for copyright reasons because of the name. And then another scene, your backpack had a piece of gray masking tape on it, and I was like, oh, those are two must have cut two different shots right there, obviously. But yeah, and I noticed a couple of things like that.
Honestly, I don't even know because it's hard to remember because that's been so long ago now
Yeah,
see, we filmed it a year, like a year or two almost, I think, before it got released. So by the time it got released, I'm like 4 years past now. So, I mean, it's 4 or 5 years. So by the time I released it, I was like, that's cool, but I don't even recognize that guy anymore, because and it was really cool because they told me, they said, don't worry about wardrobe, we're gonna get all your wardrobe, we're buying your stuff, and so
yeah,
I was like, okay. So a few years later, after the movie comes out and everything's good, I'm sitting there and I'm scrolling on my phone, and there's all this free to a bad home stuff coming up. Well, I clicked this link, it says Jake C. Young, it says stylish Ryan jacket, and I was like, what the hell is this? So I click it, and they're selling the jacket that I wore in that movie for like $90 or something. And it's on
yeah,
like one of these retail stores
yeah,
that's got my face on it. And I was like, what? I was like, that's insane. But
yeah,
it was still really cool, because that film, it was released through Terra Films, which they've released a lot of really cool stuff, like Hell House, the Hell
Okay.
House LLC. I've got a friend of mine. We're more of acquaintances, but he was a producer on that, and he actually just released a trailer for his new upcoming film, that I'm really excited to see. It's all kind of one of those connected things, in the film industry. You get to be a part of some cool stuff and get to support some cool stuff too.
yeah.
So how do you like going to conventions? I saw that you've gone to maybe at least a couple.
Oh
How's
yeah.
that ride been?
Oh man, it's so much fun. I love going to conventions. I like to interview people. When I'm there, a lot of times you get a convention, you'll see, your celebrity guest, or
Yeah.
if someone has me there as a guest, and usually they're sitting there and you got to wait to come up. I truly enjoy interacting with the people that come up there. People that are there to meet me. I enjoy interacting with them. I'll even partake in like cosplay or something. Like I'll do the whole I'll wear the poncho and the hat,
Yeah.
or
Oh,
I'll do
nice.
something and let people hold the gun, and I'll be like, make my day, and like things like that. And I just really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. So it's always fun when I get to meet new people, and they're interested in my work, and I can sign photos of the work that I've done, and hear their stories, because honestly, without those people, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. And
Right.
I truly enjoy hearing from people and hearing their feedback and their comments about stuff that they enjoy that I've done, or just about their journey. Because I've one of the larger conventions I've done this year, there was some filmmakers that came from New Jersey to see me, and the ability to get to talk to people that came from so far, just to see me and just to talk to me, and also tell me about their films and promote their films and enter them in a festival. It was really cool to get to meet people, on that similar scale.
Yeah.
So we got invited to a small one in North Carolina, but they only give us like I think 4 days like four
I was
days
good.
notice.
I was just gonna say that.
And I was like,
Yeah.
we're in California, so I was like, at least give us a month in advance, like that we can plan something.
What
Yeah.
part
But
of you
they
guys
because
in?
they saw one of the posts and they were like, oh, can you like make it this weekend? I'm like, no. Like
That's
I
awesome.
wish, but it's just too much of a short notice.
Yeah,
In the
North Carolina.
perfect
North
in the perfect
Carolina's not.
world.
Yeah, yeah. North Carolina's not too far from where I'm at, actually. Well, you said, guys, you're in
We're
Cali,
in
right?
California.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What part are you guys in?
San
San
Jose, the
Jose.
Bay Area.
Yeah.
Where at?
San Jose.
San Jose. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, you're not too terribly far from where I've been down through there. Where used to spend a lot of time over in Monterey, so that's
Oh
Okay,
really
yeah,
cool.
Monterey Bay is beautiful. Yeah.
yeah. Pebble
Yeah,
Beach over there, it's perfect. I mean, you can't go wrong
I
with
like going to Monterey. Last time I went to Monterey, I like going thrifting and I like antique shit.
yeah.
So if you ever go to Monterey again and you like that kind of stuff, there is a dope antique shop in Monterey Bay, and it's a 2-story antique shop. It's like a size of a warehouse,
wow.
and it's just huge and it's full of interesting, weird, crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean they've got so much cool stuff, and then of course if you go downtown Carmel, it's just such a cool place to just go and
Right.
hang out for a little bit. It's just a really nice place. But yeah, if you guys ever find your way down towards the Bluegrass or Tennessee or somewhere like there, you give me a yell because being down here and I'm away from a lot of people being towards more on the East Coast than the West. Especially in this whole especially in the film business. But there's a lot of stuff. I got to do some cool stuff. With the Grand Ole Opry for Hallmark, and I've got to do some. There's a few like television shows that are casting in this area, and of
Mhm.
course I've got MTS Pictures, so we're always making film too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, guys, it's always really fun. So if you guys ever find your way, down this way, hit me up for sure. We'll
for
get
sure.
together.
Definitely, most definitely. Speaking of MTS Pictures, you produced and starred in Daylight to Dark. How was starring in it and producing in it at the same time for you? How was that experience of playing both roles?
Well, I got to not only produce, I directed that movie. I mean, I got to direct the whole thing, putting it on, and then also playing sort of that dream role.
Yeah,
So if you've seen the movie, it's very I like to call it punny because we make a lot of puns and
Yeah.
innuendos to
Oh yeah, I noticed.
like the Eastwood stuff, and then
Yeah.
just like goofy like vampire movies and stuff. So it was a lot of fun. As far as directing that film, I had a lot of adversity with that one, just because of circumstances that came up. But as far as directing it and getting to work on that film and make it, just bring the vision, I had a really good crew. So you can't really bring a good vision to life without a good crew.
Yeah.
But I had a good cast, a good crew. For the most part, everybody was very easy to work with. And it was a challenge. It was definitely a challenge because when you're directing and you're starring in something, one or the other is always going to suffer. I mean, that's part of it.
Right.
But when you got a few people you can trust, to kind of help push that along, it works out pretty good. Now the the biggest challenge that I think I faced with that was, not being able to be behind the camera at all times because, you got a vision, you want to see what's going on, but whenever
exactly.
you have to be the vision, it's a little bit harder to
Yeah.
to make that happen. But ultimately, I was pretty happy with the way it turned out. It's a little fun indie drama. It wasn't a huge budget, and we worked with what we had. And we kind of played into it a little bit. You play into sort of those little funny moments that happen on screen, and it was easy to work with just because sometimes things would go wrong and we're like, well, that was a goof, and I was like, you know what, let's just leave it in the movie. If it's
Yeah,
good, let's just leave it in there. It'll give it character, and I think overall that it did. I think it turned out pretty well.
right
Yeah.
on.
So, sometimes I like when we are recording, I am I'll goof something and it's funny, and I'll leave it in because I'm like, well, that's just funny, and
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
hopefully they laugh about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that raw natural comedy kind of helps with
Yeah.
things like that. I don't know if you guys watched, the character, the guy that plays Renfield in that. Man, that guy was hilarious. There were several parts. Jeremy Boggs, he's a really good friend of mine, and there were several parts in that film. He would just honestly, like, we would go off script and he was ad-libbing, and like they're like, should we stop him? I'm like, no, keep it going, this is great. I mean,
Yeah.
man, this is great. Like some of the shit that was coming out of his mouth, I was like, where did this even come from? But it was great. So
That's
I
the
mean,
best
yeah,
right
it was a lot of fun, a lot of fun.
Yeah, I noticed like in some of like especially when you're being introduced as a character in your films, I noticed you do like the Eastwood wink kind of thing, like, or the yeah. So like as you're like that's basically the scenes in your eyes, and you're kind of like squinting, and I started looking up every time I saw that. Exactly.
It was.
I
That's like,
I get and it's fun because I can do that. Like especially when I go to conventions, people are like, do the thing, do the thing. I'm like, okay,
yeah,
go ahead, make my day. So I'll do
love it.
that, and people are like, ah. So
Hell
it's
yeah.
really fun. It's really fun. I enjoy it. I really do. I really enjoy it.
So do you have, because you said earlier before we started recording, you're a fifth cousin, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, it's something like that. We're cousins. Yeah, it's. I don't know exactly how far back it is, but I know that his. So I'm a descendant of his grandmother, Emma. Yeah.
mhm.
So yeah, that's where it comes from. And obviously, the genetics are pretty strong. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Totally.
yeah, I think I got lucky there. As I got older, my face kind of filled out, and I started looking more. I was like, oh, okay, so I can use this.
So
So
when
tell
you're
us
out,
about
like, sorry, when you're out in Carmel and Monterey and all that stuff, were you able to visit that side of the family?
Not really, just mostly because when I'm there, it's just kind of going through, man, But
Okay.
he was the mayor down there, so like the
Right.
legacy's pretty strong. Like I got to visit, the Hog's Breath Inn, and they just remodeled, and I'm really good friends. I talk with them online, and I plan to make another trip back there. It's just my side of the family just kind of migrated down,
yeah.
hit Wisconsin, and then all the way down into the Kentucky area. So it just and of course, with them being so far away, it's not exactly, like we just talk all the time. But
Yeah.
either way, it's still pretty cool to use it and have fun with it in the movies.
Right. Did they ever give you
Oh,
advice, like when you're planning on a project or anything?
No, no, we're not really super close, so I don't really get to talk to him all that much. Some of the kids, some of his kids, I'll get to chat with them on Facebook and stuff. But honestly, watching a lot of his stuff has crafted the way that I have done things, just because you get your handful of directors that you like,
Yeah.
and well respected ones who have done things for so long, such as Clint, and then I love directors like Mike Flanagan. He's
mhm.
one of my favorite directors, and I've been in contact with him. I've been campaigning so hard to play in, his Dark Tower series coming up.
Saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I got to talk to, try to get in contact with him and campaigned real hard for that. But he's one of my favorite directors. I've learned a lot from watching stuff like him, and there's just so many different directors like Adrian Lyne, who actually does a lot of like more of the erotic thrillers. But you can learn a lot from
Right.
watching some movies. You take bits and pieces, and then
Yeah.
you put them all in together like a piece of a puzzle
Yeah.
almost. And I think that's what makes a good director. As you learn to watch movies, you kind of learn how to dissect them and what to take away
Mhm.
from them. And ultimately, I think that shows if you're a true director, you're able to sort of analyze a movie and then take those elements and apply them whenever you're making your own.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So and you get a lot of people that are like, oh, film school, film school, film school, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know, you don't really. I think film school is a great thing. I mean, absolutely, craft your
Right.
skill, man. Get it out there. But at the end of the day, if you got a camera and you have the ability to make movies, make them, because that's what's going to really make your skills come to life.
Yeah, we've talked to a few people that had nothing to do with film school, nothing to do with theater,
Mhm.
and then just somehow got just got into acting, you know.
Yeah, yeah. It's just you like to pretend when you're a kid, and it just kind of flourishes, and it's acting is one of those things. It's just that's what it was for me anyways. I never could just buy the idea of being one thing my whole life. And they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I wanted to be everything. Like I didn't want to
Yeah,
just pick one
Right.
thing to grow up to be. So as I got older, I became an actor because I was always coming up with stories in my head, and it was easy to be those things whenever I wanted to be. And then acting and making film was just kind of And I think every kid does that. You make up your own stories. You pretend, and you see things in your head. You imagine stuff, and honestly, that's I think that's what makes a good filmmaker too. Is you just kind of have that little aspect of never really growing up, so you're just bringing to life stories.
Yeah, you had a whole bunch of stuff going on, and you wanted to express it, caught it on camera, and then boom, takes off from right there. Next thing you know, you're having all kinds of fun at that point.
Absolutely.
I would imagine all playing different roles and different characters, being
Yeah.
different people and personalities and stuff. It sounds fucking hilarious to me. It sounds fun.
It
You
is
know.
fun. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. And then of course, mixing with things like horror elements. I mean, man, you talk about a lot of fun when you're on set, whether it's blood or guts or whether, and I think as good actors, you got to have some really good actors to make a good horror film because you
Yeah.
you got to see the fear on their face. You got to
They got to
feel
sell
what
it.
they're
Yeah.
feeling. Yeah, and when you got a good actor or a good actress on your set, I mean, man, you talk about that. That's what makes your horror films good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I love writing. I'm not great at like character development, like dialogue especially, but I can tell a good story generally, but I don't know, I'm still gonna work on that. It's so hard.
You
Like
know,
you might not even talk about like how we talk really generally,
no, yeah, yeah, and that's what I tell everybody. Sometimes you can get too wordy because dialogue should always just be very natural. It should be, exactly
Yeah,
like we're talking. And
right.
I see sometimes movies overthink it, and then you mix something like that, like overthinking with a little bit of bad acting, and brother, you got a shit sandwich you got to try to eat. So I mean,
Right.
it's really just being natural, and I think that's the best way to tell a story is. Um, just imagine it in the real world, because when you can
Yeah.
imagine your story in a real world, it makes things a lot different. But that's the advice that I would give to anybody who's trying to make a film or wants to make a film. It's like, I hear a lot of people say, "What about fan films?" I think those are a good start. I think those are really good starts for people. But ultimately, you want to try to get away from that because if you're developing your own thing, man, you might be setting on the next big horror project. And you could make your own characters when it comes to stuff like that, and then you make something that's your own. It's original and creative.
Yeah.
So I think that's just I think it's a lot of delving into those horror elements, and to make a good horror movie, it's not so much about the killing and the red stuff and the blood and guts as it is the story. It's as the why, because let's be honest, there's a lot of films out there that are nothing but, I call it gore porn. That's all it is. It's
Yeah.
just gore,
Yeah,
but there's no story. So without a good story, that's really all you got.
that's
That's like
true.
what is that came out the clown Art the Clown Terror.
Terrifier.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like I
Damon
feel like
Leone.
they kind of got like I like the movies, right? Because they keep
I
they
I
keep
I love
stepping
I
up. I
love
know.
terrifying movies. All right, don't
I know you do.
even
But
start talking shit about terrifying movies, dude.
I get turned off by like demonic like stuff, and it gets kind of corny to me, you know. So like now that he's a demon, I'm like, it's fun to watch people like get their heads cut off and stuff, but it's like there's only a point, then it kind of
You
fades
gotta keep
out.
you gotta keep the story going, and if you keep running a story, eventually it can get difficult to make that stuff. But I
Yeah.
met all those guys, David, and they were all at a convention I was at, not this past year, but the year before, and
Mhm.
they're all super super great people. And as they continue to make those, I think they definitely they capitalized on something that hadn't really been done a lot
Right.
before.
Right.
Yeah,
And there's been a lot of precursors to that, but there's also been a lot of like follow-ups, and sometimes it just don't work, and some things it does work because with the Terrifier series, most of it is gore, and a
yeah,
lot of it is with little story, but I don't know that that could be replicated again by somebody, if you know what I'm
Right.
saying, like, because they kind of
yeah.
set the bar for that. It's like, okay, well, and when you do that, you're just deliberately trying to be the Terrifiers, and it just don't work. So I think they hit a genre at a time that it was available to them, and they done a really good job with that.
I do give him credit for that because I noticed there wasn't that there wasn't that kind of thing at the time that they I wouldn't say capitalized, but they definitely built on top of it, and
Exactly. Oh,
they ran with it, and then it was I'm not saying they're bad films. I'm just part of it. I'm just kind of like but.
Well, yeah,
Those are
it's
good.
definitely its own thing for sure.
Yeah,
It's its own thing, and I think it works for what it is. Some people probably not so much, but I like you said, they just really pinpointed at the time something that hadn't been done before. So I
yeah,
think it worked out really well for them. And honestly, I think that gives a lot of indie filmmakers hope because that film was it was an indie film made for around like 4 grand or something. I mean, and then
Yeah.
it just it blew up. So
yeah.
I think that gives a lot of people hope, that are trying to make it in the indie film world.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make some shorts eventually, but yeah, we'll see.
Oh
We'll
yeah,
see
hey
how
man,
we'll see how
if you
that
got the
goes.
ability to make them, I always say just make them, because you
Yeah,
can never go wrong just doing it. Because when you just do it, you've already won half the battle by just making the decision to do it. Because there's so many people who talk about doing this stuff their whole life and never even follow through with it. So once you make that little step and that little push to move forward and start doing it, usually things just tend to start they kind of unravel. And like as for me, like I said, man, I just got lucky. I just got really lucky, and it was one of those. Sometimes you just run with it. So
oh yeah. Oh,
Just
same with us. Same with
just
us.
like
We
this
got some.
podcast.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, I mean, and hey, man, that's awesome. I mean, so many people are trying to get stuff like that up and running, and
yeah,
people don't realize it's really hard. I
it
mean,
is.
there's a lot of time, a lot of hours, a
Mhm.
lot of editing that goes into these things. Then the upload, then the promotion of it. Like
Yeah,
nobody realizes that stuff until you've been on that side of it. And then, of course, owning my production company like I do. I mean, trust me, I know because I have to do every single bit of that. I got people that help, but at the end of the day, they're always coming back. They're like, Jake, and I'm like, okay, here we go. So
yeah, yeah.
it's all, yeah. I feel you, man. I've been there for sure.
Promoting in social media sucks, but you got to do it. So,
Yeah, you
um,
definitely got to do it for sure.
yeah.
touch your name. So Jake Crestwood Young, and then Jake Eastwood. How
hmm
did that come into play? Like, what made you decide to, because I know Jake Eastwood's your alias, correct?
Yes.
So what made you decide to go, with Jake Eastwood, and then bounce back to Jake Crestwood Young? Did you get the Eastwood from the Crestwood? How did that come up with? Like
Honestly,
what's
I don't really know where Crest would come from because that's not my middle name. But either way, it still sounds cool. So I
Uh,
was like, I don't know
I
where that.
asked you, it's said on the movie, that's why.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
I thought it
was
was
I
just
don't know if that was. I think that was just like a little fun play on words, but
okay.
yeah, it was. I think that was a play on words. But the alias, so my given last name is Young. That's the name I was born with. But however, due to my Eastwood heritage, and being a distant relative of the Eastwoods, manager I had, she kind of recommended that I use it, and she's like, you look a lot like Clint. She's like, so
Yeah,
just kind of run with it and use it, to see if it could help you build up a little bit more nepotism, when it comes to making films. So occasionally I do go by that, but for the most part, I go by Young because I do think it's very vital that I create my own story.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Even though that you're part of something that's really cool like that. I play with it and I hint at it, but then at the end of the day, I still want to make my own. Still want to make my own
Make your
way.
own name.
Yeah, yeah, for
right.
sure. I mean, because let's be honest. I mean, man, Clint's a legend, but that's I don't want to try to live up to that. I want to make my own thing because some things you can never live up to, and it's really it's just really cool to be able to say, hey, that's a distant heritage that's somewhere in my family. But ultimately, you gotta make your own thing, and it's
Yeah,
it's cool to be able to play with it. And then, of course, doing films like Daylight to Dark, you can kind
Mhm.
of really hint into that stuff, and
yeah,
really just bring that sort of character and mannerisms to life, and play into that. And I enjoyed every minute of that because that was one of those roles I've been dying to play for years, and the opportunity presented itself, and I was like, you know what, let's make it happen. So
lean in. Yeah,
yeah, you gotta lean into it for sure.
I'm glad I asked this because I would have went this whole fucking time thinking his name was Crestwood in the middle, and I'm super glad I asked this question
That
because
was
it's not
so
even.
that was a fun because my name is Jake C. Young, and then it was a fun little play on words. I think that we had talked about using to just kind of hint at that. You know what I mean? So they just kind of hinted at it, and I was like,
Okay.
okay, whatever. And of course, the credits in that movie are absolutely stupid. I mean, they are, because it's like when you're watching them, it says, it reminded me of like the Deadpool stuff, because it's like,
Oh, right.
directed by
This
Jake
guy.
Crestwood Young, and it's like music by such and such, and like a ton of other
Yeah,
people. And it's got like these just crazy
I saw it.
credits in the
It
theater.
says it's directed by J. Christopher Young. It says which stars Jake
Yeah,
C.
it said which also happens to star. Yeah, and I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah, yeah.
I was like, what? I mean, so it was just absolutely stupid. But I think that's a part of the film. If you can't have a little fun with things like that, I mean,
Yeah.
what the hell's the point in doing it?
Right, right.
Before we take off, is there anything that you would like to plug about your new movie coming out?
Yeah, Souls Chapel's getting ready to come out. I'm excited for people to see this. This is kind of a new genre of film, and it's based on a real place called Souls Chapel in a place called Somerset, Kentucky. It's one of the most haunted legends in all of Kentucky, and I was privileged enough to kind of make a little bit of a movie off of it.
Mhm.
So it's going to be coming out soon. Might even see if maybe whenever I get it, shoot you guys a screener and maybe have you
Oh
guys
yeah.
review it, because
That'll
I
be
love it.
awesome.
we're always looking for screeners early for our films, and maybe get a few quotes for them and stuff. So maybe shoot it
We're
over to
right
you
here.
guys. Yeah,
For
for sure,
sure.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, I love horror movies. I love all the new stuff like that, and I think this would be one that I think you guys would really enjoy. I would probably, each film I do, I think each one gets it's always a little more. You always kind of want to top the last one,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think this will be one of them that is. This is one of those that people are going to be like, whoa, So I'm really pleased with it. The cinematography's fantastic in it. I mean, it's just top notch, and then of course, the story in it is just, it's really kind of mind boggling. And I got to star in this one as well. But it really plays into the dark elements of witch and horror stuff. And it sort of takes place in an unbeknownst time. It's kind of in that old 18th century, 1900s era Western-esque style, but it also, it's kind of set in almost like a future. It's almost like a post-apocalyptic type of thing. So this
Okay.
thing sets its own realm of stuff, and I think people are going to really enjoy this when this one comes out. But yeah, man, I'd love to have you guys review it and give us a quote.
Yeah,
We'll
we're
love
excited
that
to
too.
watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, guys. Yeah,
There you
see, and
go.
this is why I love coming on podcasts. So, to anyone who's listening, definitely check out the Boo Crew. I mean, these guys are awesome. You guys have been here, and to anybody who's sat through this video and listened to me ramble most of the time, these guys have, you've seen their hospitality's great. I mean, you definitely gotta, you gotta plug your friends, because like I said, we're all in
Yeah.
this together, and this
Yeah.
is why we do it, is for the people that listen to us and people that tune in. Definitely, if you guys, when you post it up, just tag me in it. And to anybody who's listening, you can find me online on my Instagram. It's at Jake C Young _ official. You can check out my website, which is also on mtspicturesnews.com, or you can check me out on IMDb and see the works that I've done. But definitely drop a like and a follow on the socials. Definitely just kind of helps me see more people, and shows me
Right.
that people like you guys are interested in my work.
Definitely. What you
So
got,
you
David?
can find me at the IG at, well, the channel first is beyond the underscore ether, and then my personal account is Cali underscore DCO. That's like more life stuff and whatever. Also the
Absolutely.
email, if you guys want, whoever's listening, if they want, guest spots or just suggestions for anything, if we're, not online, is boocrew2025 at Gmail.
You can catch me on Instagram at Bay Area Creep, and that's all I got is my
Yep.
Instagram. Nothing else. Don't look me up on Facebook. Don't look me up on YouTube. Just look me up on Instagram.
Hey, they all lead to the same place.
Yeah.
They all do.
That's what I get
It's
all
all
the
meta.
time.
It's
People
all
will Google,
meta.
yeah, people will Google me, and it'll go to one of those platforms. They all go to the
Hmm.
same place. So, yeah,
Well,
you
again,
guys.
Hey,
thanks for stopping by, and
it's
we
been
had a
great having you.
blast. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thank you so much for having me. You guys have been absolutely amazing.
And we
We do our
will
best.
Yeah, we'll try. We'll be seeing you soon. We'll be keeping in touch and all that stuff and tagging you. So again, goodbye, folks. Good night. Good morning. Well, whatever time you're listening, and we will catch you guys next time.
All right, guys. We'll see you soon.
Alrighty.